Hello, in this video, we're going to explore how you can add ChatGPT to your Unreal 5 projects and use it to bring some life into your characters and allow players to have dynamic conversations with them. So let's look at what we're going to end up making. Here I have a character and I've added ChatGPT to it so we can actually talk to it. And I gave it some information that it's a World of Warcraft expert. So imagine this being an NPC in that game, and we can have a conversation with it. So I can type here.
Champion, it's not that simple. Sylvanas has had several character arcs and motivations over the years, and her actions have been perceived as both good and bad depending on the perspective. All I can say is her story is far from over.
Right, so if you want to follow along with this tutorial, go ahead and create a third-person project and make sure we're just using blueprints. We're not going to get into C++ because there's no need to at this point. So we're going to need a few pieces before we can actually start developing. We need a plugin for using OpenAPI, and I'm going to put it in the description so you can go ahead and click on the link. It'll take you to this page right here, which is the GitHub repository for the plugin. And what you want to do is scroll down, click on the download the plugin here link, and it'll take you through the Google Drive, and you want to download the version appropriate to your engine. In my case, it was OpenAPI 5.1. So once you download this, you want to go into your downloads folder, and you're going to unzip it and go ahead inside of it and copy this folder here. Make sure you don't copy the one above it. You go inside and you want to copy this one right here, OpenAI-API-Unreal. So once you have that copied, you want to go into your project folder. So let's open that one. It's right here. And in the base project, don't go into the content. In the base project, you want to create a new folder, and you want to call it plugins. And inside the plugins, you will paste the folder that we just copied. So let me go ahead and copy this folder, and we'll just paste it right here, and that should be good enough. The second thing we want to do is go in the actual project, go to edit and plugins, and over here we're going to search for text to speech, which is a plugin that is included with the default Unreal Engine. We're going to use that for simplicity's sake, and I'll explain how we can improve that further later. So once you actually check that box, you can actually restart your engine. All right, so once your engine is restarted, you should be good to go. You can actually go and check your plugins again to make sure that you have open. You want to go into your installed and make sure OpenAI API is installed, and you want to also check text to speech as well in your built-in plugins. So once you ensure that both of them are there, you're good to start. The second thing you want to do is you want to actually create a OpenAI account. And once you create your OpenAI account, I'll put the link to the website in the descriptions, but you can also see it here. Once you go inside your OpenAI account, you want to go on the top right, click on it, and go to View API Keys, and it should bring you here and should show you your API keys. And over here, you're probably not going to have one. If it's a new account, you can click on Create New Secret Key, and you can give it a name. And I'm going to call it Tutorial Key. And you can create the secret key, and you'll have the chance to copy it. Once you close this window, you won't be able to copy it anymore. So make sure you hit copy here, and either store it somewhere or just use it. So I'm going to copy it, press done, and we should be good to go here. Right, so now that we have those two pieces, we can actually get started in Unreal Engine. It's actually quite simple. The setup is maybe the harder part. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create the character we want to talk to. So that one is going to be pretty easy. You're going to right click in your contents folder, create a new folder, and we're going to call this blueprints. We're going to store all our blueprints here. We're going to go inside of here and we're going to create a new blueprint for the NPC or character we want to talk to. So I'm going to choose blueprint class, and whenever you want to create a character that is not controlled by the player, so any kind of character in your game or in your movie that you want to interact with, you usually use the pawn class. So I'm going to choose pawn, and I'm going to call this one BP NPC. So once I create that, I'm going to double click on it to open it, and I'm going to move it right here. So the only thing I want to add here, we're not going to do anything complicated. We're just going to add a skeletal mesh so we can add the UE5 mannequin here. So I'm going to click on skeletal mesh, and if you scroll down, you'll see there's a skeletal mesh asset. And I'm going to click here and I'm going to choose SKM Manny, which is the male uh, character right here. And that should be enough for what we want to do. The other thing I want to do is I don't want it to just stand still. So I'm just going to go in the animation section. I'm going to choose use animation blueprint. And for the anim class, I'm going to choose ABP Manny. And I'm going to hit compile and save. And I'm going to just drag this guy onto the into the game, and we're going to rotate him so he's facing this way. So when we actually play the game, we can go and face him. All right, great. So now that our NPC is ready, now we can actually incorporate our ChatGPT. So let's create a user interface so the user can, type to the actual NPC. So we're going to go to user interface. We're going to right click. Let's create a new folder for HUD for user interface. And let's create a new blueprint from the user interface option and choose widget blueprint. If you looked at the previous tutorials, you should be pretty familiar with this. And the base class we want to choose is the user widget. So I'm going to call this WBP and chat because this is what it is. So we're going to double click, open that. And now let's create a really simple chat interface. So to do that, I'm going to choose a canvas and drag it here. So the canvas panel allows you to create UI elements and drag them wherever you want on the screen. So it's pretty convenient for us. I'm going to add a editable text widget. I'm going to add multi-line because maybe we want to write more to the actual NPC. So I'm just going to add it under the canvas panel. Then we're going to move it where we want. I'm going to put it in the corner right here, expand it a little bit, just like that. And I'm going to rename it to chat. And the other thing I want to do here is I want to go into the font and make it a little bit bigger so we can see a bit more clear. So I'm just going to set it to 30. And then I'm also going to anchor it to the bottom left, just like that. The other thing I want to add is a button so that the user can click it whenever they want to send a chat message. So I'm just going to put a button right here and make it a little bit bigger. And to finish it off, I'm going to add a text inside the button to say send, just so it's a bit clear. But you can expand on the UI in however way you want. And I'm going to call this button the send button. All right, cool. So now that we have the button and we have the chat message, we can actually code some logic. So what we want to happen is whenever the user clicks on send, we want the message in the text to go to ChatGPT and generate a response, and then have the NPC read that response back to the user. So let's do that. So we're going to click on the button and scroll all the way down. You should have a unclicked event. We're going to click on that. All right, so now we're ready to set up our ChatGPT. So the first thing you want to do is you want to come all the way up here in the event construct. So this event is called whenever the UI is first getting created, and we want to set up the API key for OpenAI before we begin anything. This is one place you could put it. A better place could be in the actual level. So you can actually go to your third person map. You can open the level blueprint like this, and you can actually initialize it here as well. So up to you where you want to do it. I'm going to just go back here and do it in the blueprint here. So there is a function called um, set OpenAI API key. So you want to put that here. You want to drag from the event construct to this pin. And in the API key, you want to put the API key that we copied from before, like this. So if you're actually making a game to go to production, this isn't the ideal way of doing it. There is better ways to do it with environment variables and stuff like that, which we're not going to get into. But in our case, since we're just doing a tutorial, this will be fine. So once you set the OpenAI key here, we can actually make calls to OpenAI. So let's go back down here. So if you recall, what we want to do is we want to grab the text from our message and send it to ChatGPT. So there is a function in OpenAI, and it's called OpenAI call chat, right? So this is the function you want to use. You choose it. You can see there is a bunch of variables here. The one that we're focusing on is the chat settings. So if you click on it and grab from it, and you'll get an option of make chat settings. So you want to click that. And as you can see here, you have a bunch of options of the temperature, which determines how much random the response is. The higher the temperature, which is the max right now, the more creativity you give the ChatGPT model. The lower it is, the more exact it's going to be. I'm going to set mine to 0.3. I want it to give pretty good answers, pretty close to our prompt as well. I don't have GPT-4 access. If you do, you can use it. I'm just going to use GPT-3.5 Turbo. And over here, we need to give it the messages that we want it to say. So in order to do that, we can drag from here and then say promote to variable, just like that. Now, if you come onto the left side of your screen, you'll see you have three variables here. You have the chat, which is the text that we created in the UI. We have the send button, and now it's the messages thing that we just created. So let's go ahead and scroll all the way down. Before we do that, make sure you compile so we get the full options for the messages variable that we created. So we're going to hit compile. And now you can see in the default values, you have messages which have 0 elements in it. So what we want to do here, let me reduce the variable thing here. We want to add elements here. So if you hit the plus button here, and then expand the index 0, you'll see that each element in this messages array has two things, the role and the content. So if you've been playing around with ChatGPT, you can tell it before what you want it to be, and then give it some information for it to give answers to. So let's go ahead and do that and give some stuff that we want. So I wanted to be a World of Warcraft expert in the lore of the game, and I wanted to refer to the user as champion. So if any of you have played the game before, most of the time that's what it does. Like that's what most NPCs do. In their documentation, OpenAI mentions that GPT-3 doesn't pay too much attention to the system message. It's one of its flaws. So what you want to do, if you wanted to make it more exact, you want to add another message, which is a user message. Those ones have a more effect on OpenAI. So let me add one more element, and we're going to expand it. And now I'm going to set the role as user, and I'm going to give it some more information so it gives us better answers. So I'm going to copy something I have created from before and paste it here. So if you can see here, I'm saying you are an expert in World of Warcraft lore and as this streamer, and you give humorous and brief answers, and you use Twitch memes where possible, just for fun. All right, so once you have that, you're good to go. You have the two initial starting messages to set up the GPT-3 model. And now we need to also, this is the initial messages we wanted to start, but we want to also pass in the message that the user writes in the chat section. So we're going to drag this into the event graph, and we're going to drag from the chat. We want to get the text. So there's a function called get text multi-line editable text, and then we want to drag that into right here. We're going to create make chat log. So now what you want to do is you want to right click here, and there's a option called make chat log under utilities, because the messages is a chat log, so we need to convert the chat into the chat log object. We're going to take the return value of our text and drag it into content. And let me move this here. And the role that the user has is user, right? So make sure you change this to user, and then we want to add whatever response here to and add it to the messages, right? Because in a chat, we want to keep the history of all the things that have been talked about. So what you want to do here, you want to drag from here and search for the add option. And under the array, just choose add. Make sure you choose under array because there's other adds under map and operators and stuff like that. So make sure you choose the arrays one. And then you want to, we're going to move this a little bit to the right. So whenever the user clicks the send button, we want to add it to the messages array. Okay. Now, after we add it to the messages, we want to actually make the call to OpenAI. So we drag from add all the way to OpenAI. And you can make this a bit more neat if you like. So now we make the call to OpenAI. And what we want to do after that is we will drag from finished. So whenever the call to OpenAI is finished, we want to make sure that first of all, it was a success. So we use branch. So what the branch does is you tell it what to do if something is true and when something is not true. So in our case, if the call to OpenAI was successful, then what we want to do initially, let's just print it to the screen. Let's just do print string just to see, make sure that everything is working. If you expand the print string, you see the duration is 2 seconds. I'll make it 10 seconds so we have time to see if it's working or not. Now, what we want it to print is not hello, it's the actual message that comes from OpenAI. So we can drag all the way here. We can break it. So there's a break chat completion. And what we want is the actual message. So we drag from the message and we drag from the message, we break this one as well. And we take the content and we plug it in here. Okay, so we break the chat message and then we break the message, we take the content and we print it. So now if I actually hit compile, we see that there's an error here. So let's see. Oh, so we used the add function here, but we didn't actually include what it should add to. So we wanted to add the message that the user sent into the messages array. So now if I hit compile, it should work. So now if we actually go in our game, one last thing we need to do is we need to add the UI into our game. So we're going to open the level blueprint and we're going to say on begin play, event begin play, what we want it to do is we want to create a widget, create widget, and we're going to choose the class that we just created, which was WBP chat. And we want to add it to the viewport. So it adds our UI to our scene. And the last thing we want to do is we want to see the mouse cursor, so we can click in the so we can see our mouse. So we're going to say get player controller, and we're going to say set show mouse cursor, and we're going to enable it. So now if we hit compile, now if we play, we should see our character, we should see the chat messages here, and we should be able to move around. So now if we walk up to this guy and let's write something, let's see, is Arthas evil? We should get a response back from ChatGPT. Arthur's story is a tragic one. Some could argue that he started as a hero, but ended up doing some really bad things. So one could argue that Arthur is more chaotic natural. So you can see we're making a call to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is giving us a response. So right now we're fully integrated with it, and it was really as simple as that. So the only other thing I wanted to show you is that you can easily take whatever response that ChatGPT gives, and instead of printing it on the screen, which in itself is not bad, right? A lot of quest dialogues in games is just text, but you could also actually play the voice, like play the actual text. I'm going to show you how to do that with the built-in text-to-speech in Unreal Engine. It doesn't have the best quality, but it proves the point. There are better ways of doing it, like using Amazon or Azure or some other ones out there, which I'll cover in another video. But for now, we're just going to use the default one. So in order to set up the text-to-speech engine, you want to right-click, search for text-to-speech, and you'll get the text-to-speech engine subsystem. You click on that, you drag from it, and you should get a add default to channel. So you need to create a channel in order for the text-to-speech to be able to play on that specific channel. So I'm going to drag from here onto this, and for the channel ID, you can give it whatever you want. I'm going to call it my channel. And after you do that, you want to activate the channel. So again, you drag from the text-to-speech engine subsystem and you hit activate channel. So now the channel will be activated and you'll be able to play on it. And you make sure that your channel ID is the exact same as the one that you created. Once you have that set up, there's only one more thing left to do. So we're going to come to the print string section and we're going to go to text-to-speech engine subsystem, and we're going to say speak to channel. Speak on channel. We click that. I'm going to move it after my print string. I'm going to go here, and we need to give it the exact same channel ID that we just created, which was my channel in my case. And we need it to give it the string it wants to speak. So it's the one that comes back from ChatGPT, and we plug it in here. So now if we hit compile and we hit play, we should hear the actual application respond. So we're going to hit play and we're going to go and ask another question here.
Wow, champion, that's like saying Pikachu is a dead Pokemon. WoW is still going strong with millions of players worldwide. It's still the mother of all MMORPGs, Pogump.
Yeah, so that's a bit of cope, but you can see that it's working properly. The last thing I want to add is if you want the ChatGPT to remember the conversation, and so you can have multiple conversations and as you go on, and you want it to remember all the questions that you asked, the last thing you want to do is you want to add the response that it gives to your message history. So the way you do that is you grab your messages here, and then you want to add the response that came from from ChatGPT into the message log. So before I call the speak on channel, I'm going to first add it to the history and then actually speak on the channel. So this way the your NPC will remember the conversation history that you've been having until now. And with that, this would end the tutorial. And you can actually incorporate this into your programs, and it's a pretty cool one because it'll make your world more dynamic and players will be able to have conversations with the NPCs. So thanks for watching.